The Philippines you think you know doesn't really exist. Not the postcards, not the beach resorts, not the filtered drone shots. Because hidden far beyond the tourist islands are places so extreme, they barely feel real. Entire islands disappear beneath the sea. Mountains breathe sulfur into the sky. Rivers emerge from caves nobody has ever fully explored. And some places, locals still refuse to enter after dark. This is the unseen Philippines, a country of more than 7,000 islands scattered across one of the most unstable regions on Earth. A place shaped constantly by volcanoes, typhoons, earthquakes, jungle, and ocean. And once you leave the familiar travel routes behind, the Philippines changes completely. The air feels heavier here. The forests grow thicker. The silence becomes deeper. You begin to realize this is not just paradise. It is survival. Kalangaman Island makes its presence felt from the very first moment you see it. Not with towering cliffs, not with dramatic mountains, not with crowds or noise, but with something far more delicate. A narrow stretch of impossibly fine white sand, extending hundreds of yards into the sea like a fragile thread connecting land and ocean. And yet what makes this place unforgettable is not simply its beauty. It is the fact that it never stays the same. Every single step you take onto the sandbar feels like stepping onto something alive. The shape beneath your feet is constantly changing, subtly, silently, reshaped by every gust of wind, every shifting current, every rise and fall of the tide. You could stand there in the morning, memorize every curve of the shoreline, and return only hours later to find an entirely different island waiting for you. Nothing here is permanent. The sandbar bends. It narrows. It stretches farther into the water, then slowly folds back into itself again. As if Kalangaman is quietly breathing, as if the island is alive, constantly rearranging its own identity. And then, when the tide reaches its lowest point, the transformation becomes even more extraordinary. A second sandbar emerges. Suddenly, both ends of the island extend outward into the sea, creating a breathtaking image from above. A white bird, wings fully spread, floating across the deep blue ocean. It is from this remarkable shape that Kalangaman takes its name, from the Cebuano word langam, meaning bird. A name born not from imagination, but from the island's own natural design. And yet, there is a strange contradiction here. Despite being named after a bird, Kalangaman rarely has resident birds at all. Its small size offers little shelter. There are no dense forests, no towering canopies, no hidden habitats. Only a concentrated patch of vegetation near the island's center. Tall rows of coconut trees rise there, their trunks bending gently with the sea breeze. They create some of the only patches of shade on the entire island. Small islands of relief amid the blinding brightness of the white sand. Step away from them, and the sunlight feels almost overwhelming. The sand reflects light upward. The sea mirrors it back. Everything glows. Everything feels exposed. Beautiful, but fragile. And that fragility is taken seriously. To protect Kalangaman's delicate landscape, local authorities strictly limit access. Only around 500 visitors are allowed here each day. Not thousands, not endless streams of tourists. Just enough people to witness its beauty, without overwhelming it. And every visitor receives something unusual upon arrival. A separate trash bag. A simple but powerful reminder that nothing can be left behind. Every bottle, every wrapper, every trace of human presence. You bring it back with you to the mainland. Because on an island this vulnerable, even a small act of care matters. Perhaps that is what makes Kalangaman feel so different. It is not just a place you visit. It is a place you are temporarily allowed to enter. A living island, a shifting island, an island that changes with every tide and asks only one thing in return: that you leave it exactly as beautifully unfinished as you found it. Then, suddenly, the trees open, and Aliwagwag Falls appears. Aliwagwag is known as the stairway to heaven. And the moment you see it, the name makes perfect sense. Rising through the forest in a seemingly endless sequence of cascading water, Aliwagwag is the tallest tiered waterfall system in the Philippines, reaching a total height of around 1,115 feet. To imagine its scale, picture a structure as tall as a 100-story building. But unlike most waterfalls that plunge downward in one dramatic drop, Aliwagwag reveals its beauty differently. It descends in steps, more than 130 rock terraces stacked with remarkable symmetry, forming what looks almost like a giant natural staircase carved directly into the mountainside. Each level catches the water, only to release it again into the next, and the next, and the next, creating an uninterrupted chain of motion that seems to flow forever. From a distance, it feels almost unreal, as if the mountain itself has built a pathway into the sky, a stairway not made for people, but for water. And yet, Aliwagwag never looks exactly the same twice. During the dry season, the water can become so clear, it appears almost invisible, crystal-like, transparent enough to reveal every contour of the smooth rocks beneath it. The entire waterfall feels calmer then, gentler, its movement quieter, its presence serene. But when the rainy season arrives, Aliwagwag transforms completely. The clear waters turn bright white, foamy, powerful. The soft trickling sound becomes a thunderous roar as torrents rush over every rock tier with renewed force. The mountain seems to awaken. Every step of the waterfall surges with energy. Every cascade crashes louder than the one before. It becomes impossible not to feel small standing before it. And yet, despite its scale and power, Aliwagwag remains welcoming. At its lower levels, countless smaller cascades create shallow pools between the rock steps. Here the water slows, the force softens. Visitors and the local residents can enter these sections to bathe, immersed in cool flowing water, while surrounded by the sound of the falls above. It is one of the rare places where something so monumental can also feel deeply personal. A giant, made gentle enough to touch, but Aliwagwag has endured more than changing seasons. In 2012, Super Typhoon Pablo swept through the region, causing devastating damage across the landscape. The surrounding area suffered heavily. Forests were torn apart, trails disappeared. The environment was left scarred. Yet Aliwagwag remained standing. Its waters kept flowing. And slowly, the green returned, the trees recovered, the landscape healed, life grew back around it. A reminder that even after destruction, nature can rebuild itself. And then there is Mount Apo, the highest peak in the Philippines, rising 9,692 feet above sea level. It towers over the surrounding land with a presence that feels both commanding and sacred. Though classified as an inactive volcano, Mount Apo is far from silent. The mountain still breathes, Along the ascent toward its summit, signs of geothermal life emerge from the earth. Sulfur vents release their unmistakable scent into the air. Steam escapes from hidden openings. Boiling mudflats bubble beneath the surface. A quiet reminder that deep below, the mountain is still alive, still restless, still carrying the fire that formed it. But Mount Apo is more than a geological giant. It is also a sanctuary, a crucial habitat for one of the rarest and most remarkable birds in the world. The Philippine eagle, one of the largest eagles on Earth, a symbol of strength, survival, and fragility. Hidden within these forests, this extraordinary creature depends on the mountain's protection. And in many ways, the mountain protects far more than wildlife. It protects meaning. Its very name carries reverence. Apo translates to grandparent or ancestor in certain indigenous languages, a word that reflects deep respect, not just for the mountain's size, but for its spirit, its age, its presence, its sacredness. To climb Mount Apo is to pass through multiple worlds. At its base, tropical rainforests thrive with dense vegetation and rich humidity. The air feels warm, heavy, alive. But as elevation increases, the landscape begins to change. The trees thin, the temperature drops, mist gathers. Soon the rainforest gives way to mossy cloud forests. An entirely different realm. Branches coated in green, ground softened by damp earth, fog drifting silently between ancient trunks. A place where everything feels quieter, older, as if time itself moves differently here. Mount Apo is not simply the highest point in the country. It is a journey through layers of life, a mountain of fire and forest, of steam and silence, of power and reverence. A place where the land reminds you that some heights are measured not only in feet, but in the feeling they leave behind. At the southern edge of Palawan lies Balabac. Balabac is the southernmost archipelago of Palawan, and many call it the last paradise of the Philippines. The moment you arrive, it becomes easy to understand why. This is not the kind of beauty that overwhelms you all at once. It reveals itself slowly, quietly, with every step, with every change in the tide, with every shift in the light across the water. Because here, something extraordinary happens when the sea begins to retreat. As the tide pulls back, it leaves behind only a thin layer of water spread across endless sandbars. Just enough to cover the surface, just enough to create an illusion. Suddenly, the entire sea transforms into a giant mirror. The sky reflects perfectly below your feet. Clouds drift across the water's surface. Sunlight stretches endlessly in both directions. And as you walk forward, it no longer feels like walking on land. It feels like walking in mid-air, as if the ocean has disappeared, as if you are suspended somewhere between sea and sky. There is no clear horizon, no obvious boundary, only reflection, only silence, only the strange and beautiful feeling of floating through a world that feels almost unreal. And then there is the water itself. Balabac's seawater possesses an exceptional clarity, so transparent, so pure, that even in deeper sections, the sea seems to glow from within. Its colors shift constantly with the sunlight. Near the shore, bright turquoise shimmers across the shallows. Further out, the tones deepen into rich cyan, darker and more mysterious. Each movement of the waves changes the palette. Each passing cloud paints the water differently. It is a landscape made not only of land and sea, but of light. One of Balabac's most remarkable features lies hidden in this changing ocean. A group of islands that appear only when the tide is low. For a brief window they rise from the sea. Small pieces of land suddenly revealed, reachable, visible, real. And then as the water begins to rise, they disappear completely, submerged once again beneath the surface. Gone without a trace. What was solid moments ago becomes invisible. What was once an island becomes only ocean. Traveling through Balabac can feel like a treasure hunt. You search not just for places, but for moments. For islands that only exist for a few hours. For landscapes that vanish as quickly as they appear. Every journey here depends on timing, on patience, on the rhythm of the sea. And surrounding this ever-changing world are vast coconut forests. Rows upon rows of palms stretching across the islands. Their leaves moving gently in the coastal wind. Their shadows shifting across the sand. But these forests are more than beautiful scenery. They are a source of life. A pure and essential resource for the local people. The trees sustain daily living. They provide what is needed. Shelter, shade, connection to the land. In Balabac, nature is not simply admired. It is depended upon. It is part of survival. Perhaps that is why this place still feels untouched. Why it still feels so distant from the modern world. Because reaching Balabac is not easy. It demands time. A long journey by land. And then by sea. Hours of travel. Multiple crossings, a gradual separation from convenience, from noise, from everything familiar. But that very difficulty has become its protection. The long road keeps the crowds away. The distance preserves the silence. The effort required to arrive has shielded Balabac from the footprint of modern life. And because of that, its beauty remains intact. Its waters remain clear. Its hidden islands continue to disappear and return with the tides. Its mirror-like sea still reflects the sky without interruption. Balabac is not simply a destination. It is a place that feels discovered rather than visited. A place that reminds you that true paradise is often found at the farthest edge, hidden behind effort, protected by distance, waiting quietly, where the land ends and the sea begins to disappear. Hidden beneath Samar Island lies another world entirely. A world without sunlight, without sky, without any sense of time. Biak Nabato. Above ground, it appears quiet. A tropical forest stretching across rugged limestone terrain. Dense vegetation, towering rock walls, the sound of the river moving below. But beneath this landscape lies another world entirely, a hidden underground maze, a network of more than 100 caves, carved deep into the earth in varying sizes and shapes, some narrow and suffocating, some vast and echoing, all connected in ways that make the entire system feel endless, mysterious, disorienting, as if the mountain itself has hollowed out a secret beneath your feet. Step inside, and daylight begins to disappear. The air grows cooler. The silence becomes heavier. Every sound, every footstep, every breath returns to you in echoes. And deeper within this labyrinth lies one of its most feared chambers, Ambush Cave, a place known for its darkness. Not ordinary darkness, but a darkness so complete. It strips away your sense of direction, your sense of distance, your sense of certainty. Inside, walls vanish. The path disappears. Even the simplest movement becomes uncertain. It was here that the Katipunan revolutionaries once turned the cave itself into a weapon. Using the cave's natural confusion and total blackness, they created a trap. Spanish soldiers entered and quickly lost their bearings, unable to see, unable to orient themselves, unable to tell where the walls ended, or where danger began. In the darkness, fear became their enemy. Disoriented and vulnerable, they were defeated inside the very cave they had entered. A reminder that sometimes the landscape itself can become part of history. But Biak Bato was more than a hiding place. It became something far more extraordinary. The caves were ingeniously repurposed into an underground network of makeshift government facilities. A hidden world of survival. One cave served as a hospital, sheltering wounded fighters, a place where pain and hope coexisted in the shadows. Another became a food storage cave, protecting precious supplies deep underground. Others held weapons, concealed safely within the limestone walls. And one cave became an office, a place where General Aguinaldo worked. Making decisions, planning, leading, all from within the shelter of stone. Imagine that. A government functioning inside a cave system. History unfolding beneath the surface of a mountain. Connecting these cave entrances and towering limestone cliffs is another striking feature of Biak Bato, a series of cable suspension bridges spanning the Madlum River. Suspended above the flowing water, these bridges create a passage that feels both thrilling and fragile. Each step causes a slight movement, a gentle sway. Below, the river rushes between the rocks. Above, the forest canopy filters sunlight through the trees. From this vantage point, the entire landscape reveals itself differently. You can see the sheer limestone walls rising vertically, jagged, towering, ancient. You begin to understand how raw this place truly is. This is not polished beauty. It is untouched beauty, pristine, wild. The tropical forest here grows directly on rugged karst limestone terrain, where stone and life seem to compete for space. Massive stalactites hang silently from cave ceilings, like frozen waterfalls of rock. Below them, equally impressive stalagmites rise upward from the cave floor, slowly formed over countless years, meeting only in silence. Outside, vertical cliffs dominate the landscape, their surfaces rough and weathered, their scale overwhelming. Everything here feels shaped by patience, by time, by pressure, by nature working slowly and without interruption. And despite this harsh limestone environment, life persists. Rare life, endemic life, creatures found nowhere else. Hidden within these forests is the Philippine warty pig, elusive, adapted to this rugged terrain. Long-tailed macaques move through the trees, watchful, restless, their presence often noticed only by sudden movement in the canopy. And somewhere within the mountains of Luzon, one of the region's most remarkable inhabitants still survives. The giant cloud rat, a rare species found only here, quietly living among the forests and cliffs. Proof that even in harsh landscapes, life finds a way to endure. That is what makes Biak Bato so unforgettable. It is not just a place of caves, not just a forest, not just a historical site. It is a hidden world where nature and history exist side by side, where darkness once became a weapon, where caves became hospitals and offices, where bridges sway above rivers, where forests cling to stone, and where rare creatures still move through a landscape that feels almost untouched by time. Biak Bato is not merely explored. It is entered, carefully, quietly, as if stepping into a place that still remembers everything that happened beneath its surface. Then finally, far beyond the coastline, lies one of the last truly wild marine ecosystems left on Earth. Tubataha Reef, An isolated reef system in the middle of the open ocean. Far from shore, far from cities, far from anything that feels familiar. Out here, there are no roads, no buildings, no distant lights on the horizon, no easy way back, only water. Endless water. Marine rangers spent months here, living completely surrounded by the sea. Day after day, night after night. With no escape from the weather. No shelter from the feeling of isolation. Only the sound of waves, only the movement of the wind, only the constant reminder that they are standing in one of the most remote places in the Philippines. A place where human presence feels temporary, and the ocean feels permanent, powerful, unreachable. But what lies beneath the surface is even more extraordinary, because below the waves the Philippines reveals another universe, a hidden world that feels untouched by time, a world that begins the moment sunlight breaks through the water and fades slowly into blue. Massive coral walls rise from the ocean floor like underwater cliffs, towering structures built not by human hands, but by life itself. They stretch downward until they disappear into darkness, into blue so deep the eye cannot follow. You can only imagine what lies below. And through these vast underwater canyons, sharks move effortlessly, silent, steady, patrolling the currents with calm precision. No urgency, no fear, only instinct, only belonging. This is their world. You are only passing through it. Above the reef, sea turtles drift quietly, weightless, graceful. Moving so slowly they seem almost suspended in time. They glide over the coral gardens below, untouched by the rush of the surface world. And everywhere, life, not scattered, not occasional, but constant. Thousands upon thousands of species, moving, feeding, hiding, hunting, living within one of the richest marine ecosystems on the planet. Every corner of the reef is alive. Small fish weave through coral branches. Invisible creatures blend perfectly into their surroundings. Entire communities move together in patterns too complex to understand. Every layer of the water holds something different, something unexpected, something beautiful. The deeper you look, the more life reveals itself. And yet, despite this abundance, there is balance. Nothing feels disturbed, nothing feels forced. Everything seems to exist in perfect rhythm. Predator and prey, coral and current, light and shadow, a fragile harmony, still intact. Divers who enter this world often struggle to describe it. Many say Tubataha feels like stepping backward in time, like witnessing the ocean before humans changed it, before pollution, before damage, before disruption. A glimpse of what the sea may once have been everywhere, untouched, balanced, wild. There is something deeply humbling about that realization. To float above this reef and understand that you are looking at something rare. Not just beauty, but purity. A living system still functioning as it was meant to. A reminder of what nature can become when left alone. No crowds, no noise, no signs of the modern world. Only coral walls fading into blue darkness. Only sharks cutting silently through the current. Only turtles drifting through filtered sunlight. Only endless life, moving in every direction. Tubataha is not simply a reef. It is another universe, hidden beneath the surface, protected by distance, guarded by the sea. A place where the ocean still remembers what it was, before the rest of the world arrived. And after traveling through all these places, one realization becomes impossible to ignore. The wildest parts of the Philippines survive mostly because they are difficult Too remote, too dangerous, too inconvenient. The moment a place becomes easy to access, it begins changing forever. And maybe that is the real tension of modern travel. How do we experience the world without destroying what made it special in the first place? At sunrise on Mount Pulak, the answer almost feels visible. The temperature drops close to freezing. Frost forms on the grass despite being deep inside the tropics. Hikers move silently through darkness, waiting for first light. Then slowly, the clouds begin to rise, and within minutes, the entire mountain transforms into an island, floating above an endless white ocean. No noise, no distractions. Only wind moving across the summit. Some landscapes entertain you. Others reset something inside you. And maybe that is what the unseen Philippines truly offers. Not luxury, not comfort, not perfect vacations, but perspective. Because these islands still remind us what the natural world looks like when it remains larger than humanity itself. Unpredictable, violent, beautiful, alive. And somewhere beyond the last tourist ferry, beyond the final signal tower, beyond the edges of the familiar world,